All right, we'll get going here. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the NFP Review Board for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. Nolan, can you do roll call, please?
Hollander?
Here.
Rowe?
Here.
Mergia? Stemple?
Here.
Munchow?
Here.
Bassett?
Here.
All right, next we got excused absent board members. Can I get a motion to excuse absent members?
So moved. Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next up, agenda approval. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Support? Yeah, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up, approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the Natural Features Protection Review Board meeting on May 7th, 2026. Are there any amendments or comments related to the draft meeting from May 7th? No? All right. I'm hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from May 7th?
I move to approve the minutes from May 7th.
Any support? I'll support it.
Support.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to public comments. If there's any general comments from the public, please come forward, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
I'll add to this is just a general public comment period. There will be a separate public comment as well for each of the action items and new business, just a reminder.
Do we have any call-ins? I guess we should give it a little bit more time. Nothing? All right, no comments. Are there any comments from the board? All right, moving on to new business. We'll start with 132 West Cork Street. There's an opportunity for the public for public comments specific to this agenda, if there are any. And then we'll wait for any call-ins as well. All right, no comments. Nolan, can you provide a little bit of background on this?
Yeah. So this first case is 132 West Cork. It's a part of a group of parcels on West Cork Street consisting of 112, 114, 120, 126, and 132. All of those parcels are adjacent to each other and are within the NFP overlay district. There's two other items on the agenda this evening, 112 and 114. We're keeping all of these kind of as separate action items, which is why they're in the agenda the way they are. So starting with 132 West Cork, it's within the NFP overlay district primarily because of protected slopes and slope setbacks on site, as well as a woodland complex and / maybe some protected trees within that area. The site is zoned RM15. It's located within the West Edge Hill neighborhood. And these parcels have sort of been zoned this way for a long time. They haven't really been developed because of some of the challenging topography on site. The slope isn't just gradual, it kind of undulates on site alongside the Woodland complex that's also on site. The site didn't require rare species review, so that wasn't required for this property. What the applicant is looking to do is build duplexes on this property, a duplex on this property, and some of the others with a shared driveway access that comes up from Cork Street into 132 West Cork, and then around to the flatter sort of areas up on top of the hill, the sloped flat areas on the backside of those properties. Right now, the applicant is requesting a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals from the NFP Board for relief from the protected slope and slope setback standards to impact 2,683.4 square feet of protected slopes, or 27%, and 655 square feet, or 21.2%, of protected slope setbacks to allow that shared driveway access along that 132 West Cork Street property. The applicant has been working with myself and our zoning administrator through this process to understand materials we require and next steps for bringing these recommendations forward. So following the NFP board meeting, they would, again, these are recommendations to the Zoning Board of Appeals, who are then the final authority in terms of granting a variance, so granting that relief from the development standards. And through this process of working with the applicant, this design has sort of evolved from an original design that had individual driveway access across individual parcels, and that was more impactful to the natural features on site, slope, setbacks, and woodlands, than this shared driveway access, with 132 West Cork being sort of the bigger impact. So the NFP variance recommendation is only for the slopes and slope setbacks for those certain percentages and that square footage amount. The woodland preservation requirement is being met, and that is shown within the agenda. It's above the minimum 25%. I believe it is 30%. So some impacts, but retaining and meeting the intent of the NFP in terms of preserving that woodland. So with that, the staff recommendation at this time is to recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the protected slope and slope setback standards for 132 West Cork Street to impact 27.78%, or 2,683.4 square feet of protected slopes, and 21.2%, or 655 square feet of protected slope setbacks, with two conditions. One being, if site plan review process is required, that no work begins until full site plan review is completed or approved. Right now, this is still being determined if it's going to be an administrative review or a full site plan review. So we're working internally with the applicant to figure that process out. And then tree protection fencing remaining in place during the course of the work, which the applicant is showing the tree protection fencing on their plans currently, as well as a specification for those. So with that, I'll invite the applicant up to the podium if they want to field questions or give any more background.
All right. Basically the same thing, just in case you can see that a little better. All right, so some of you guys are familiar, some are not, so I'm just going to go from here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Cole. I'm the owner of Statewide Rentals, LLC. For any members who are newer to this project or this is the first time reviewing it, we are proposing 3 residential duplexes on 3 legally plotted lots of record on West Cork Street. That's 112, 114, and 132. These are modest by right residential uses on lots that were platted as individual building lots, and they sit within the NFP overlay district. I want to be very clear about what I am and what I'm not recommending, or I'm sorry, what I'm not requesting. I'm not asking for any relief from the Woodland standard. Nolan's mentioned that today. Every one of these parcels meets or exceeds that recommendation. Use table 6.2-3 requires any lot that's 75 to 100% covered in woodlands to have 25% of those woodlands remain. Our lowest is 30%, and it's on this 132 West Cork Street parcel. The other two are higher than that. Above the minimum of the 25. Our woodland delineation was prepared by Davey Resources Group and is shown in the packet you guys have today. The only relief I'm requesting is from the protected slope and slope setback standards under section 50-6.2K. It's worth keeping in mind that these slopes come under the standard under 50-6.2H, which one of the conditions that places the slope under the protection is the woodland slope facing, and that's a condition here on this property. The regulated slope sits within the woodland that we are already preserving above the minimum requirement of 25%. So this is not a disturbance of sensitive standalone feature. It's a narrow necessary footprint within the area we're otherwise already protecting, where two standards overlap on the same ground. The ordinance asks you to make 4 findings. I'm going to go through each one of those 4 one by one. The first one is, can these lots be reasonably used for their zoned residential purpose without relief? The answer, on lots this narrow, the protected slope and its setback cover so much of the buildable area that there's no way possible to place a home and a code-compliant driveway without touching them. Without modest relief, these legally platted residential lots cannot be built on. The second requirement is this relief minimum necessary? Answer, yes. Our disturbance is confined to what the driveway, the utility connections, and the reasonable building placement require. A limited portion of the regulated slope on each lot, and the single most important change since our January meeting, was consolidating access to one shared driveway anchored at this 32 West Cork Street parcel. One driveway serving the group instead of 5 separate driveways serving each structure, which reduces the disturbance across all 3 lots. Third, does this relief impair the intent and purpose of the overlay? It does not. We preserve the woodland above the required minimum of 25%. We sit well under the district's impervious coverage cap, which is RM15, allows up to 60% impervious. In each one of these lots is more than half. On each one of these lots, more than half of the parcel stays undeveloped and pervious, which is clustered right against the natural features, which is exactly what section 50-6.2J directs. We're installing protective fencing around the preservation areas, and that where no clearing, grading, or storage will be allowed. We direct no stormwater onto the slope. We place no utilities within slope face or setbacks, matching the ordinance own protections. Fourth, is this relief balanced by conservation measures? It is. We stabilize disturbed areas with native seeds. We use erosion control best practices throughout construction. We fence and protect the preserved woodlands. And again, we preserve more than the required 25% woodland that the ordinance requires. I also want to show you some concretely how far this has come since our January meeting. And it turns out, and it all turns on this one decision, which is the driveway. In January, there were 5 parcels as a request, each lot with its own driveway cut. Today, there's only 3 parcels, built around a single shared driveway originating at 132 and serves the entire corridor. And that one change is what makes all of this reduction even possible. We completely removed 120 West Cork and 126 West Cork from the request, which removes 1,690 square feet of regulated slope disturbance off of the table. 112 and 114, we pulled the driveway and parking footprint back, cutting the affected slope on 112 from 5.7% to 2.4%, and 114 from 26% to under 7% impact. Across the corridor, total regulated slope disturbance falls from about 5,630 square feet requested at the time down to 3,025. That's a 46% reduction since our January meeting. This is a materially smaller request than the one that you saw back in January. And beyond the design itself, we deliver specific items that this board and staff raised back in January. A project narrative, an erosion and sediment control plan, construction phasing, the woodland delineation provided by Davie Resource Group, native seeding, and a site development alternative analysis. On that last point, the biggest alternative is the one I just described, from 5 separate driveways reduced down to 1. And where the January submission was faulted for the lack of detail, this packet answers that head on. Reconciled per parcel figures and shaded slope, setback, and woodland exhibits down to the square foot. The feedback from the last hearing is reflected in what you have in front of you today. So my request is narrow and specific, that this board recommend approval of the protected slope and slope setback relief for 112, 114, and 132 West Cork Street to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll answer any questions you have.
Yeah, can you describe the, I believe I read in here that the driveway access, one of the concerns we talked about last time was putting a wall to protect against ongoing erosion. And I think I read in here that there's something in the design of the driveway that avoids the need for that. Can you provide some detail on that?
You got it. Those, the retaining walls are going to be for 112, 114. Because those are so much closer to the road, the steepness of that hill, it required retaining the soil back. But because the driveway is all the way on West 132, and that increase is only a 10% grade, we don't require the retaining walls anymore. So that's what you saw in the packet.
It's literally a shift to a different grade.
Correct.
It's just
132 is a lot more gradual than 112 and 114. Gotcha. Because I think it's 40 feet. 112 and 114 are 40 feet closer to the road, so we would have needed to eat into that slope quite a bit, which would have required the retaining walls. Because we've got more room on 132, we can gradually increase. If that answers your question.
Cool.
And I think, like Nolan mentioned, myself, Nolan, Pete, we've been kind of going back and forth on, best use of this parcel, or parcels, I'm sorry, and then what exactly the board would want to see, what Nolan and staff wanted to see, and I think Nolan can contest. I think we've gotten everything down to, this plan, and there's a second page here too that kind of shows where the protective fencing is going to go, what kind of protective fencing. We got the woodland protection on there, but again, like Nolan said, we're above the 25% minimum, so we're not asking for anything on that. So I think we're as detailed as we can be. Nolan's been asking for quite a bit, and we just, we've been sending everything and editing and modifying, but you see all the utilities, see the road. This access is only from Cork Street. That was one of the neighbor concerns is, they didn't want to see, pass-throughs over to Imperial. There are no pass-throughs to Imperial. Those 3 lots, 101, 107, and 113 Imperial are standalone on themselves. There's no access from these 5 to those 3. And this is, again, just one driveway, which reduces the impact to the slope and allows for access for those 5 parcels to now be used and utilized.
Can you walk us through the alternative to Hammerhead?
Yeah. So can you scroll down a little bit? Okay, so the fire marshal said, he gave me basically, I think there was 5 different options. You can do a roundabout. You can do, we just didn't have the room for those larger ones. So the alternative to Hammerhead, we had you got a laser? I'll just jump up here. Oh, you can't hear me then. Oh, they can't hear me. Essentially, the alternative to Hammerhead was taken right out of the code book that he gave me and placed on there. So we had our back road closer to that top property line, okay? But we had to bring that road, that back road, that spine, down a little bit to meet the turnaround, the curve, if that makes sense.
So what's shown here as parking for the proposed dwelling off of Imperial, that would not connect through to Imperial?
Correct. No. Those are two different grades.
Got it.
Yep.
So where it says alternative to Hammerhead, the idea is that a fire apparatus could do a 3-point turn
You
in
got
and
it.
out of there. Okay,
You got it?
thanks.
You bet.
Is that separated by a fence, a wall, or you said it was a different grade height?
It's a different grade height. Yeah, 130, or I'm sorry, 113, 107, and 101 are, they're lower.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see on this map, but each one of those green points, I'm not sure how far you can zoom in, but they're all different, they're different data points from the surveyor. But when this, at the end of that hammerhead, kind of need a laser, but that point right there is going to be higher than what the parking is for 113.
Thank you.
You bet.
Question about the tree protection fencing.
Yeah.
I see the detail here on one of your sheets. The fencing is temporary, correct?
That fencing is temporary, but we will be putting, that's a code thing, so
Right.
it depends on what they're going to consider front yard,
Okay, I
backyard.
just see you guys are installing footings for the temporary tree protection fencing,
Yeah, just make sure no one knocks those down, and,
like just concrete footings.
yeah,
Yeah.
we put them in and pull them out all the time.
Okay. Yeah. It just seems I don't know, invasive. Are we doing more damage by putting them in, putting them out?
Oh, you're saying you'd rather not see them?
I guess I'm just off. I'm asking, are there alternatives to tree fencing that could be temporarily installed without digging and pulling concrete footings? I don't know.
Yeah, we basically are following the exact verbatim plan that Nolan said is required. So
Okay.
if he's willing and the city is willing to deviate from it, then we'll deviate, but
If that's code, that's code.
Yeah, that's straight from the code. Other applicants have done different fencing that's a little more temporary. So if the board would like to make a recommendation that different fencing be used, that's, up to you all as a board, but, yeah, there should be, this is straight as that,
It's
Mr.
great.
Cole
I mean,
stated.
it's
This is
great. A robust tree protection fencing is great during the construction process because people in excavators,
Yeah, you bet.
if it can be moved, they'll move it.
yeah, I agree.
Great.
And just on that point, fences can be within the setback, as I was reviewing
The
it.
temporary fencing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is allowable. Yep.
Sorry.
What's that?
No, I was asking you, did
Thank
you say?
you.
Oh, okay, got it, good.
Any other comments from the board? Oh.
I'm not sure where the parcel boundaries are, so I'm not sure if I'm talking about 132 or one of the other ones.
Can you,
But on both of these sort of site plans, there's outlined, it's more clear in the second one because there's less detail. There's those green rectangles that are identified as woodland preservation areas.
yep,
So is the intent that everything outside of those tree removal will be taking place, or?
correct.
Okay, so even in the, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself into other lots we're going to be talking about in a sec, but the space in between those two hatched green areas, there'll be tree removal.
No, those
Okay.
are removed from the application, so you don't, none of the information for 121.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Makes more sense now.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
and you can imagine that line going.
so
from-
those, we're not even talking about those two,
Correct.
so you didn't have to.
We
to
didn't go
label
into detail on 120 and 26.
Sweet, makes more sense. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe with this design as presented, there wouldn't be a need for impacts in that
Correct.
heavily sloped area because of the shared drive access, so that the
Right.
buildings get set back, or, back to the backside of the property without a need for an access
Correct.
road or
So there's no need even to discuss slope setbacks for those, basically.
We're outside of the slope, we're outside of the slope setback.
Yep.
And we're meeting the Woodland minimum. So we're not asking for variance on either of those two.
Everything within that dark outline,
Yeah.
inside of that is the protected slopes, and that dark outline,
Okay.
slope setback
Yep.
demarcation.
Excellent. What was the slope setback demarcation? The agreeing to
What's the
We
width
use
of it?
12 and a half.
what's that?
We use 12 and a half feet. Is that what you're asking?
No, is like how is that demarcated on the map specifically?
It's that black,
The black line is all of those things.
that's the setback.
Protected slope plus the setback.
Nope, that's just the setback.
Okay.
Everything inside of that line going towards Cork Street
Okay.
is the protected slope
Okay.
areas.
That makes more sense now. Thanks.
Good question.
Better to ask a bunch of dumb questions than to
Yeah,
not
let's
understand.
get 'em.
No, there's no dumb questions. There's only
I'll
questions.
come up with some.
Included as well in the staff report is the list of species for reseeding as well. If board members had a chance to look at that or had any comments, I lean on board members for that. Nothing jumped out to me, but
No, it's a perfectly good native seed mix. I'm concerned a little bit about maybe how shady the conditions are going to be. So a lot of the species in there are not necessarily shade tolerant. Some are, some aren't. It's just a general slope stabilization mix. There's probably enough stuff that is shade tolerant that it'll do the trick, but you might consider. So that's going to go along the edges of the driveway
You
or
got it.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You might consider trying to ask the seed provider to make some modifications.
Or shade tolerant.
Yep, more shade tolerant. I think so. I'm looking at the site and thinking that the conditions will be somewhat shady, especially with the preserved woodland there and the adjacent property.
And the
Probably
south
there's a lot of trees there, so.
Makes sense.
Yep.
I'll do that.
Anybody else?
I would just like to say that this is a massive improvement in detail, and I want to thank you for all of the effort that you obviously put into this and following the process.
I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. And I do
Likewise.
appreciate, your candor from the first meeting. Although that may have come across a little bit harsh or indifferent, I do appreciate it. So thank you.
And one thing I'll mention, Mr. Cole mentioned as well, these are difficult sites based on the existing conditions, and this design does really, minimize impacts to the extent possible to still develop them, but do it mindfully in a way that's sensitive to the existing features. So I just wanted to still state that this does, I think, meet the intent of NFP, which is why staff recommendation is to recommend to ZBA.
Just out of curiosity, what are the considerations for whether or not this is going to be administratively reviewed or go through full site plan review?
Yeah, we're still working on that. Mr. Cole has been coordinating with Pete and I very closely for many months, and we'll be going to a projects meeting, which will have some other city staff involved that can help understand if this meets a requirement or threshold for site plan review or not. If it doesn't, the process would be this recommendation or recommendations goes to ZBA, and then it would be administratively reviewed, each parcel separately by the liaison to the NFP board, which would be me, as well as other staff. So we're still working through if site plan review is required or not, but so if it is, it would come back, but if not, it would be an admin review process. Yep.
Mr. Cole also already mentioned working with the fire marshal on the plan for access for fire apparatus. Is that required regardless of whether this goes through full site plan approval, or is that no longer an issue if it's administrative?
I don't have the answer to that question. So I didn't have the conversations with the fire marshal, but I think that was this was part of the consideration. I think there's probably some questions about the utilities and things like that, but, the drive kind of access across parcel boundaries. It's not something we see very often, doesn't mean it requires site plan review, but we want to get Mr. Cole with other staff and get that squared away, so.
So the code actually strictly exempts single-family and duplexes. You know that, or you probably already know that. So these are exempt, but Pete shot me an email a couple days ago and said, hey, I think we should get this to a projects meeting. We've already gone through a projects meeting when this was going to be a multi-unit. But he said, hey, I think you should go to a projects meeting. And I just, sure, let's do it. And so we're just, I mean, you know what a projects meeting is, but for anyone that doesn't, the building officials there, the fire marshal's there, plumbing, electrical, basically anyone in the city that, you know, has a say in something like this, if it were a multi-unit, 3 units or more, they are all at one meeting to say, oh, you should probably do this at 10% grade, or you know, your drains need to look like this, or et cetera. But the code exempts single family and duplexes. So we're doing that because, you know, kind of just Pete said, let's go for it. And I just said, fine, sure, let's do it.
Are you concerned about your right angle turn off of the Cork Street entrance here?
I'm not. These are going to be, the buildings that are going up are the City of Kalamazoo's pre-approved duplexes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the buildings have already been approved. These are, our ideal client is going to be 1 or 2 people. So between these 5 structures, there's probably going to be maximum 10 people. So 10 people sharing a 24-foot wide road. My road on, you know, Rose Street is 23 feet. So, and fire trucks and ambulance and large trucks can make that turn all day long without, you know, impeding the other lanes. So I think if South Rose is okay at 22 or 23 feet, I think our road at 24 feet is going to be fine.
Do you have any wiggle room to adjust that proposed structure there in case somebody tells you that you have to do
we 100% do, because the
radius?
We're outside of the slope.
Yeah.
You know, so we can, you know, we could run that road all the way over to the building if we need to. So there is room, to your point.
I'm only asking this because that could impact slope encroachment and other things that we're talking about today.
Yep, and really the impacts to the slope for 132 West Cork is primarily that drive until it gets past the setback point, and then the building is just kind of impacting a little bit of that setback, but it's, so yeah.
Yeah, so we could make that turnaround as wide as we need to. If the fire marshal says, hey, make that, you know, 30 feet wide, there's space for it, and we're out of the slope, so, and the slope setback.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? No? All right. Shall we make a motion? All right, I'll make a motion that the Natural Features Protection Board make a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the protected slope and slope setback standards for 132 West Cork Street to impact 27.78% or 2,683 square feet of protected slopes and 21.20% or 655 square feet of protected slope setbacks with the following conditions. If the site plan review is required, no work begins until full site plan review approval and tree protection fencing remains in place during work.
Support.
All right. Any final discussion or comments from the board members?
It's a minor thing, but we discussed it, so I think should be amended to that, the recommendation to substitute shade-tolerant species into the seed mix.
All right. I think that's a good idea too. So we'll add in the substitution or addition of shade-tolerant seed for the seed mix. All right. Support, we got support for that. All right, Milon, roll call.
Roll call, yep.
Yeah.
Hollander?
Yes.
Rowe?
Yes.
Stemple?
Yes.
Munchow?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
All right, nice work. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next action item, which is 112 West Cork. Nolan, we need to go through public comment and opportunity
Yeah,
for this.
for each item, we'll do
Okay,
public
yep.
comment.
All right,
then we'll
any
jump
public
into-
comment here? I'm not seeing anyone stepping forward. We'll give it a few minutes for any call-ins. All right, no call-ins. Nolan? Nope.
So we just had a question because this is hard to read and it wasn't on the letter that was sent to us. But we have some concerns about where the driveway would be. Like visualizing being on Ash and being on Cork Street. And, you know, maybe you can speak to this as where are we looking at the driveway now in the grand scheme of things?
Is this in reference to, I guess, the driveway access off of Cork going up lot 132?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
so-
didn't know what to ask, like, there's a group of us. We didn't know what to ask before we knew what was being prepared.
Okay. So where on that plot is the driveway going to be?
Yeah,
All right.
Yep.
Are you particularly concerned about, so you're on Ash Street?
we are on Ash
Okay,
Street,
so
yeah.
you're concerned about infringement upon your personal space in your backyard or whatever. So are you kind of asking whether or not there's going to be some sort of buffer between
Well,
where the driveway?
Real quick, since this is public comment, I just want to, so if you're still going public comment, finish, and then we'll jump into this. It's not really a back and forth, so,
Okay.
so yeah.
I would say I'm wherever I need to be to ask my question. I'm not sure if that's,
Yep, so do you have any more to the
I
to the
just said,
question?
my big thing is about the driveway.
Okay,
All right.
okay. So then we'll
Give the applicant.
come back to that once we can invite the applicant back up to
Okay.
speak to that.
Okay.
And then we'll have the dialogue with the applicant and the board.
Perfect.
Yep. Appreciate it.
All right. Nolan, I think it's on to you for any explanation of this one.
Yep, so I'll be brief. The agenda report, staff report's very similar to 132 West Cork. This is a similar request for relief from the slope standard and slope setback standard. In this case, to impact 50 square feet of protected slope and 240 square feet of protected slope setbacks. We're still looking at the same condition, the two conditions that we saw on the 132 West Cork Street, which was if site plans required, no work begins until full site plan approval, and then the tree protection fencing remaining in place during work, during construction. So with that, I won't go too much deeper into my own report. I'll invite the applicant back up to field any questions and maybe clarify the public comment. And I'll do.
So, to the driveway, code is 5 feet from that property line to the left. So if you're on Ash, the code says a path
Is
is
it,
5 feet.
I think you need to turn on your mic.
is it green lit up at the bottom?
There we go, try that.
Hello, hello, hello.
There we go.
There you go.
On now? Okay. All right, so code is 5 feet from the side property line. I think we're at least twice that on that property line. So, and we do plan to have some kind of tree barrier there. So as of right now, we're code compliant. If you're asking exactly where that is, with your back towards Cork and you're standing at the bottom of the slope, you're looking up, the driveway's over to the left. That kind of make, okay. Yep. So no one's going to highlight that there. So your property would be probably over on the left on one of these, one of those lines that jogs off. So, and I wrote up and then it'd go over to the right.
And there's, I think you have a call out in the plan. It's hard to see, I know. I'll try to zoom in. There's a 10-foot driveway setback.
Yeah,
Call out.
there we go. Stick around for any questions from you guys if you have any.
I think just real quick run through what the actual impacts are
Yeah, so
in terms of the slope and stuff. It's the placing of the structures, right?
Yeah, so with this one, it's just the structure because we removed the driveway, we removed that front yard parking, and with the shared driveway now, obviously all the driveway and the parking is north of the property. So all we're needing to do now is stick the building where it needs to go, and the impact is just the building and that small setback. Again, driveway removed.
And so why is it, so I'm just looking at it from a strictly, like, I don't know, not from a planning perspective, from just what I can see, the first three structures are where they are, and then the two we're talking about now and the next,
question.
they're why are they so far?
Yeah, so 112 and 114 are only 150 feet deep. The other two are 200 feet deep. So there's a 50-foot difference. So 50 feet of the back of that property belongs to Imperial Street.
So it's because of how the individual parcels are actually
it's just
delineated? That's
Nolan, can I ask you a question real quick? I have the parcels pulled up on my screen. Can I show
there
them
we
to
go.
everybody up here?
Or you have the survey. I submitted the survey.
Got 'em?
Yeah, let me, hold on one second.
Yeah, I've got the Kalamazoo GIS site up here, so I can see.
Oh, you can see
I
it.
can see exactly
Oh,
what you're
okay.
talking about.
Yeah.
You guys can continue and I'll look and see if I can pull that.
But yeah, 112 is 112 and 114 are 49 by 150, and then 132 is actually 96 by 200, and 120 and 126 just for those are 49 by 200 also,
Just did it that way.
which is why the other houses are 50 feet further back. There we go.
Yeah. So I think what he is mentioning is that these are not as deep as the other ones. There's this gap here where the Imperial Street properties kind of come down that extra distance, which is why the buildings are placed kind of the way they are. Yep. Yeah.
Any other comments? Nolan, do we need to address the public comment anymore?
We did public comment at the beginning.
I know, do we need to address the one that was made?
I think,
Any
I
further?
don't know if the question was answered on where the driveway
Yeah.
was located in relation to, so, yeah,
All right.
so, yep.
Any other comments from the
Yeah.
board?
Yeah, sorry about the public comment period. It's kind of an interesting, with meetings like this, it isn't so much like back and forth. It's provide public comment and then we go into the, so.
Nothing in here, so you guys are good.
No, appreciate you being here. Thank you.
All right. Should we make a motion? Anybody else? All right. I'll make a motion that the Natural Features Protection Board make a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief from the protected slope and slope setback standards for 112 West Cork Street to impact 50 square feet of protected slopes and 240 square feet of protected slope setbacks with the following conditions. If site plan review is required, no work begins until full site plan review approval. Tree protection fencing remains in place during work. And do we want to add in the shade tolerant seed mix?
There's seed mixes planned for this one too?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll just add in the shade tolerant seed mix. Any support?
Support.
All right. Any final discussion or comments? No? Nolan? Roll call?
Yeah. Hollander?
Yes.
Rowe?
Yes.
Stemple?
Yes.
Munchow?
Yes.
Bassett?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next action item. This will be for 114 West Cork. We'll have an opportunity for public comment here as well. No, I don't see anyone stepping forward. We do. Okay, we have a call. My first. What do I do with it?
If you take it off of Do Not Disturb, it should just come through. Hello, is anyone there? Hello? Okay, I think we'll give it a little bit more time, and if no one speaks, we will continue forward. Yeah. Yeah, they don't really, so how it works, I guess, is a good opportunity to explain how this works, but the calls don't usually queue in, so we can't really see if they're queued. They'll just, if we take it off Do Not Disturb, they'll just kind of roll in, and then they should hear us, and we should hear them, but. Okay, all right, well, we will continue forward then.
Okay, so no other call-ins, I take it? Okay. All right, Nolan, we get a little info here?
Yep, so 114 West Cork, this is the parcel directly adjacent to 112 West Cork. It's a very similar situation, very similar relief. In this case, it's a request to grant relief from protected slope and slope setback standards to impact 292 square feet of protected slopes and 316 square feet of protected slope setbacks. The two same conditions are on this recommendation as well. And again, this is very similar to the previous case where it's just how these properties were surveyed and platted versus the other ones that had a little longer in the back. So yeah, I'll invite the applicant back up to field any questions if there are any.
Yeah, so this one's just a little bit jumping right in. Did anybody have any questions for me? All right, so this one's just a little different because on 112, the right side of this is outside of the slope and slope setback, so it's smaller. This one here obviously goes, cuts all the way across, so it's just a little bit larger.
Yep. And so, yeah, the 114 is lot 98, I believe.
Yep.
So there's a rough outline. It doesn't go that far up.
No, it doesn't go that far, but yeah, you got that's the idea of it, yeah.
Any comments from the board? Nothing? Yeah, pretty straightforward on this one.
Yep.
All right, I think we're ready to make a motion on this one. I make a motion that the Natural Features Protection Board make a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant relief for the protected slope and slope setback standards for 114 West Cork Street to impact 292 square feet of protected slopes and 316 square feet of protected slope setbacks with the following conditions. If full site plan review is required, no work begins until full site plan review approval. Tree protection fencing remains in place during work, and if any seed mix is needed, that it includes a more shade tolerant seed mix. for erosion control.
Support.
Wonderful. Any final discussions, comments from the board? All right. Nolan, roll call, please.
Hollander,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Stemple,
Yes.
Munchow,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to our fourth and final action item. We'll have an opportunity for public comment on this one. And this will be, 607 East Kilgore Road. All right, I don't see anyone stepping up. We'll give it a minute for a call-in. All right, no call-ins. Nolan, can you give us a review of this project, please?
Yeah, so if you're not familiar, 607 East Kilgore Road is known as Milham Park. So this is a project that's being completed by the City of Kalamazoo Parks and Recreation Department. This is a set or series of improvements planned for the property. The park itself is located in the Millwood neighborhood, right on the southern boundary of the city limit. It's zoned RS5, and it's been a city-owned park since, I believe, 1910. And it's 195 acres, so it's quite large. And there's been improvements and changes to the park since around the 1920s, so it's been kind of iterated on for many, many years. It's in the overlay district primarily because it is one of our larger publicly owned and accessed green spaces. It's also, though, within the NFP overlay district because of protected slopes and slope setbacks kind of throughout the site. Woodlands, complexes, and protected trees scattered throughout the site. Hydrology and wetlands associated with Portage Creek, and then it also requires NFP review because there are quite a number of observations of different species on site. Right now, the applicant is proposing to remove and replace the existing parking lot, some of the existing parking lot along Kilgore Road, and that activity should actually lower some of the impervious coverage on the site. Similarly, there's some existing parking spaces along Lover's Lane that get used quite a bit, and those are going to be, some of that's going to be removed, and a different parking area will be added with some accessible parking spaces. Again, that should lead to some lower percentages of impervious coverage. And then there's going to be some accessible walks and an overlook deck kind of near Portage Creek, but outside of the setback from the creek. So there'll be some new walkways that are accessible as well as that little overlook. The remainder of the existing walks throughout the park will remain as is for now. They're not planning to add any exterior lights. There's going to be a little bit of stormwater work associated with this. And there will be new trees planted per NFP because they're slated to impact or remove some protected trees, but are planning to replace those. And then our zoning ordinance as well requires some tree plantings. So that's kind of the broad strokes overview of the project right now. We are recommending, staff is recommending that the NFP board approve these phase 1 plans with the conditions that no work begins until full site plan approval. So this project is going through full site plan approval right now, and they're slated to have their first site plan review meeting on July 1st. The other condition is tree protection fencing remains in place during work. Approval of the city stormwater engineer who will do that, they'll do that review as part of full site plan review. And then the other condition was that conservation measures and construction BMPs identified in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service verification letter are implemented to avoid any potential impacts to protected, endangered species on site. You'll see there's a lot of material with this project, but there's a full woodland delineation and report. Nywander or Nywander, I'm probably saying it wrong. Yeah, I'll let them say it right. There was a full on-site review done after they got their MNFI desktop report, which was included. They're also very clear on some of the justifications for why certain trees, there's not a lot of trees, protected trees being proposed to be removed, but they have justification for why, as well as the locations for where new tree plantings would go to replace those. Otherwise, there's like a full report about impacts during construction and monitoring by a arborist for this project. So it's quite extensive. So with that, I'll invite the applicant up. I have the presentation up and ready to go.
Good afternoon, directors. Thank you for letting us present today. My name is Rachel Hughes-Nilsson. I am a landscape architect with OCBA Landscape Architects. I'm here with Patrick McBeary, who is the Director of Parks and Recreation, ready to answer any questions. Do you mind going to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, you're going to have to be Vanna White
I'm
today.
distracted, so just, it's good.
So Milham Park consists of two properties, the 607 East Kilgore Road and the 4200 Portage Road. These properties also include the golf course, it's just two really big properties. We are not proposing separating out the park as any part of this. They will remain the two properties as is right now. So overall, looking at the project, as Nolan said, all of the work proposed is only going to be on 607 East Kilgore, but overall there are 40 acres to both sites for the Milham Park area. We have existing shelters. It's a very old park. It's the second oldest park, I think, for the city. There's some lovely WPA work with the stonework with some ramps and stairs and the grills and the shelter. We don't want to disturb any of that. That's great history. But if we go to the next slide, Nolan, we did a master plan for the park with the community back in 2023, asked people what kind of improvements they wanted to see, discussed maintenance, things like that. Two big things came out of this discussion. One, accessibility needed to be improved into that park. Those parking lots are old, they don't function well, they've been patched a zillion times since probably the 70s. They're all alligatored, and there's not a lot of accessibility through and into the park, so we needed to improve that. And people wanted to see the vehicular traffic that goes all the way through the park. You've got your drives along Kilgore and Lovers Lane, you've got the drive up on the very east corner on Kilgore, and then there's the road that goes through. They wanted to see a lot of that vehicular traffic from the center of the park removed to make it more safe for pedestrians. And they had all sorts of other things, more playgrounds, more overlook decks, fishing. Now that all of the trout work has been done to the creek, and they've done some really great improvements to the creek there. People want to be able to fish. So we kind of, looking at the overall price tag of some of these ideas, it was into the multi-millions. Don't have that for the, this first phase. They were able to get a land and water grant from the state of Michigan, which is great. So that's helping with some of this cost. But we looked at starting to work on the accessibility issue and working on removing vehicular access from the park as this first phase. It's not the really glamorous part of it, but it's very much needed. So if we go to the next project, there are several key areas to be removed. That entire parking lot along Kilgore Road needs to be removed and replaced. It's, as I said, and I'm sure if you've been out there, the asphalt is atrocious. It doesn't meet stormwater needs. It doesn't meet any of the zoning ordinance requirements for parking lots. So that needs to be removed and then replaced back to meet the zoning standards. So full curb and gutter, stormwater capture and treatment, all of that. Barrier-free, actual barrier-free spots with aisles and signs and ramps and all that good stuff. So that will be removed and replaced. On the Lover's Lane Drive, there is some parking spaces right along Lover's Lane, which are horribly unsafe because you have to back out onto Lover's Lane to use them, so those are going away. And then there is a large parking lot kind of on the east side of that upper area. That will be going away as well as part of that, removing the traffic from the inside of the park. That area will just be topsoiled, and so the whole drive, that parking lot, all of that will be removed, topsoiled and seeded. And then we're going to put in a new parking lot much closer to the entry that, again, will be barrier-free accessible, so we'll have barrier-free parking spaces, aisles, signs, ramps, all of that, and that will connect then into the existing walks that are remaining. We don't have enough in this first budget, this first go-around, to replace all of the walks, but we had to start somewhere. So at least getting the parking infrastructure established, cars can only go in these certain locations, is part of this first project. The last thing, as Nolan mentioned, because of all the great work that's been done with the creek there, we want people to have access to it, and right now there's no barrier-free access to it, so we have a new walk and an overlook deck that is proposed, a wooden overlook deck on the north side of the park to be able to overlook the habitat that's been created there, be able to fish if needed, and so that's also some of the amenities. So the next couple of slides just kind of talk about what I was talking about: full replacement, curb and gutter, stormwater capture, 57 new parking spaces. I think we're guessing around 90 spaces there previously. There's no striping, kind of tried to lay it out. Some of the parking shapes don't make sense, so when we actually legitimately laid out parking and drives, we got a much smaller parking lot, and also to preserve as many trees as we could. So we're actually reducing impervious surface there. And, it'll be heavy duty asphalt through the center, and then lighter duty in the parking spaces, just again, to try to help make that a more sturdy, robust parking lot so it's not failing right away. The parking lot on the north there, you'll see, it's just right off Lover's Lane. It's a small parking lot, so it's only 12 parking spaces. 2 barrier-free parking spots there, and then connecting back into those walks. This area, because it's smaller, we don't need to treat it, but we'll have 2 leaching basins, and groundwater is much lower just because it's a much higher elevation, so we have the ability to do leaching basins in that, infiltration in that area. And then the last one is the boardwalk. The pictures are examples of a boardwalk we did recently, similar up in Granville. So it's nice low slope ramp. You have guardrails around the side, and you have a couple of areas that are lower so that somebody in a mobility device could come up and fish if they wanted to. They have the ability to see the creek and all of that. So it's really made for everybody's access to see that. If we go to the next one, please. So in terms of woodland cover, we had Davie Resource Group, just like Jeremy, come out and do our woodland assessment. So one of the things about the woodland assessment is that woodland areas that have turf underneath them don't count, and that's right from code. So what you would think a majority of this area would be woodland, it's not. There's a lot of turf underneath the park, or throughout the park underneath these woodland areas. So there are 3.95 acres of woodland. We're not touching any of them. We're not going near any of them, so we are not affecting woodland cover. Next slide, please. Thank you. Water resources. The closest amenity that's proposed here is the walk and the boardwalk. Based on this topographic survey by AR Engineering and the 25-foot setback from there, our proposal is to have the boardwalk at the top of the slope. We don't want to disturb these new slopes for the creek. We don't want to affect any of the habitat that's been created there. We don't want to have any soil erosion issues, so we're actually at the top, behind the slope. So when you use that, the edge of the water, and then that slope there, we're more than 25 feet back. So we're out of the wetland or water resource setback, so we're not impacting that at all. Next slide, please. Wetland delineation, we had Native Edge come out this year and do our wetland delineation. We are outside of that as well. We also met with Eagle this spring in April. They walked the site with us. They agreed with that estimation that, putting the boardwalk at the top of the slope and not touching the slope, that puts us outside of the wetland. When we go for our Eagle permit, we're not applying for the wetland because we're not impacting it. The only thing we have to go for the Eagle permit is floodplain. So we're not impacting any of that. Next slide, please. Slopes, again, at the top of the slope. So we're not impacting any slopes. And those slopes there in that location aren't more than 20%. So we're not doing any impact to the slopes for any of the project. Protected trees. There are, according to Davie Resource Group, there are 566 protected trees on this site. A lot of trees. We are proposing to remove 19. Some of them are around the parking lot at Kilgore, and then some of them are at the parking lot up by Lover's Lane, and then one is by the parking lot on the east side of the upper area because it's actually in the parking lot. It's grown up in the parking lot, and there's no way we can remove the asphalt and protect that tree. And according to the list, it wasn't a healthy quality tree anyways. We have a tree management report and plan as part of this submittal, and so, one of the approaches is that as they're doing this, they're going to start at the very northeastern part of that parking lot, and they're going to start pulling out the asphalt and the base material and putting topsoil back in, and they're going to back out of the site so that they're not going back and forth over, because, that it's surrounded by tree roots. One of our biggest concerns with this whole project is kind of a cascade effect. You touch a couple of trees around these areas we want to do, but then because there's so many trees, then you touch the critical root zones of another couple trees, and then you touch the root zones of another, and we're going to strip everything out. So talking with Nolan, we talked to Davie Resource Group and their team and created this management plan of how can we best remove a lot of this material, topsoil, and not impact, the tree roots. So yes, there are places where we are cutting across or, doing some work within the critical root zone, but we have very tight tolerances on our work limits. They're right outside the edge of where we're just basically removing and then putting topsoil back in and trying to minimize compacting. And so keeping the equipment on the existing asphalt reduces any kind of compaction on those roots. So backing out of the site helps preserve all of those critical root zones that we would be crossing, and therefore preserving all of those trees. I will add that out of their, good to poor quality trees, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst, there's 1 tree that qualifies as the best on the site, and we're going nowhere near it. It's kind of over on just above the creek there, so we're not going anywhere near it. So there's a variety of trees that we're removing. There's a list in there that will, kind of talk about that. There's pictures of each of those trees so you can see them. And so out of the, I think the percentage is, 3.4, thank you, Nolan. 3.4% of the overall trees from what we're taking out. So we worked really hard to minimize the impact on the trees there. Next slide, please. So just looking a little closer, that kind of helps look at, what each of these trees are, what Davie Resource identified them as, what their issues were, and kind of shows you where those are. We did, when we found that location, there's kind of a natural clearing right in that spot anyways. There's like a little weird concrete pad that I don't know what it was, because it's kind of like pavers, like a bunch of 10 by 10s sitting next to each other. I don't know what it was, but it's already kind of cleared there and cleared in the area. So that's where we focused, because it was naturally cleared there to begin with. And then just, we just touched some of those trees around there, to alter the grades to add curb and gutter, to add the sidewalk, things like that. But we looked at a variety of options as to where that could go, and that seemed like the best location and minimize the most amount of trees. Next slide, please. The ones along Kilgore Road there, there's 11 trees that would come out. Most of them are struggling. The ones that are currently south of the parking lot, between the parking lot and Kilgore Road, you drive by and you can see they've been cut, they've been altered, they're struggling. That's not a great place for them, so they're kind of the poor condition. And so these are ones that are immediately adjacent to the construction. but they would be replaced as part of it. And unfortunately, one of the issues we have with this is Parks needs to be able to maintain these parks, and replacing a parking lot which gives people access is just a natural function of life. We have to be able to replace materials at the end of their life. That asphalt in that parking lot is way beyond the end of its life. It is not barrier-free, it's not safe to walk in, there's lots of potholes, divots, things like that. This is helping maintain the park and give new access to the park. So there's kind of that balance we have to make with some of this of, how does Parks continue with maintenance and keeping this a safe park for everybody to access. So again, we just tried to remove and replace so we're not impacting more trees beyond that. Next slide, please. And then that's the one tree that's in the middle of the parking lot up on the upper east side of that. And I'm not sure how it ended up growing there, but it is what it is. Next slide, please. So in terms of landscaping, we've already gone through the project meeting and the checklist meeting, and as Millon said, we have our first site plan review meeting coming up next week. One of these zoning ordinances is that for every acre of the property, you have to plant a new tree. So there's 40 acres on this property. This site is already heavily wooded. Every time they want to do some work, if they have to plant 40 trees, we're not going to have any open space for people to recreate anymore. So the conversation was, can we just use the area that is impacted as part of the construction? And it was agreed during that checklist meeting that we're just going to use the area impacted by construction. So that's 3.7 acres, so we're putting 4 new trees in to meet that requirement. Next slide, please. And then because we're removing 19 trees as part of the protected trees, and it just so happens to be the exact same number of what we would be required for having a parking lot along a roadway and having screening between the parking lot and the roadway, and the length of that parking lot, we needed 19 new trees along Kilgore Road right there. So during the checklist meeting, it was agreed that the 19 trees that are along there could also be counted as the 19 replacement trees. So those are all along that path, and then kind of in that corner there at the intersection, that's where all the proposed shrubs would go. It just makes it easier for maintenance for parks if those shrubs are all kind of in the same location for watering, weeding, that kind of thing. And then, next slide, please.
I think
Or
Or is that the last one?
I think
That might be
that's
the
it.
last one. Okay, cool. And then as Nolan said, there was the Michigan, I'm going to kill that, the native.
Michigan Natural Feature Inventory.
Thank you. Sorry, nerves. That was completed, so you guys have that report. We really shouldn't be impacting any of those species as part of this. We're replacing kind of in-kind asphalt to asphalt, public areas, and being behind all the wetland, being at the top of the slope, we're really not impacting where those little guys would be anyways. So, we're really trying to stay away from all of that as part of this project. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if I forgot anything.
With the trees that are being replaced, is it there's a lot of information, so I couldn't find it. Is it a species by species to species?
It's not required.
Yeah,
It's just as long
just
as
curious how you're
Yeah.
approaching it. Yeah.
Yes and no. We used a variety of things. Some of the, there's a lot of oak being removed, and having oak right above a parking lot tends to make marbles on a parking lot. So we use some other trees that are native that may not have as much litter. I mean, every tree has litter, but not as much of a walking hazard. But there are oaks in there. So we have a variety, just because we also can't have more than 30% one species, 25%. I forget what the ordinance is.
A
But
diversity
we had to
provision.
have diversity. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Great. And there's plenty of oaks still.
Correct.
In Milham Park.
The other 550, yeah, whatever. There's a lot of oaks out there.
You'll notice too that the replacement trees are kind of on the edge of the Kilgore parking lot, and that's because the NFP speaks to replacement trees it's basically prohibited to stick them in the middle of a parking lot, so that we definitely don't end up with a situation like the one tree that is slated for removal that is surrounded by asphalt. So in this sense, it's pulling double duty in that it provides some screening. It will be a little bit hardier tree for that zone near the road and the parking lot, and should end up in a better situation than the current trees. But the Woodland report also outlines too that there should be an arborist on site to be able to assess as those removals happen and as equipment comes in and out. So
Got a few questions here. So as the arborist on the board here, we're going to talk trees for a minute. Question about the redo of the southern parking lot there along Kilgore and where those run of trees are getting removed. Is that planting strip going to be made any wider?
It is slightly, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it has to meet the zoning ordinance. It currently is it's less than 5 feet wide now, and I think it has to be more like 10 feet now. So that's why it's not as many parking spaces, because right now there's a series of we're guessing parallel parking, along that south side. We tried to fit it in there, but we can't make it work and have that buffer, that green space that you're supposed to need. So there is no longer any parallel parking on the south side.
Great.
So,
are you adding a curb too to separate the planting strip from the parking lot?
Yes, it's entirely curbed.
Wonderful.
Yep.
We'll stick down to that same area. There is a tree that's slated for removal in I guess that would be the northeast corner of that parking lot as you pull in from Kilgore, other side, Nolan.
Right, by the playground.
There.
Yep.
Is that tree not able to be retained?
No, because we're heavily into, if we go,
I know it's right on the edge of the parking lot currently.
Yeah, so you're talking that guy right there.
Which one are we?
Where the mouse is?
I can't. Oh, there it is. Yes, I see it now.
Yeah, okay.
Number 71, it's an oak.
Right. So right now we're draining from south to north, and there is a trench drain that goes along the curb, and then a big pipe, and then it has to go into a treatment system and then connect back into the existing storm line from there. That kind of line that you see just north of that shoots off at an angle, that's that existing storm line. So we have to be able to connect into it. We have to put the stormwater treatment right there. That connects us back into the storm, and then we can go back, after treatment goes back into the creek. Okay. So it's partly because we were touching a fairly large chunk of the critical root zone as part of this new work, and then needing a place to put that treatment cell, which is big. It's going to end up going kind of just north of that in that space. So that's unfortunately why that one had to go. Right. But we have a new one going, several new ones going back in that area, so.
Right. Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because there'll be less impervious coverage with the reduction at this parking lot, but the current parking lot is not well drained.
Right.
So it's kind
of. It just all shoots to the creek right now, nothing's captured or treated.
It's in the way of other work.
Yeah.
All right, understand. A comment, I guess, for the two new trees that are being planted in that lot at the west side, kind of in the little bump out.
Put on the very last one there. There you go.
So if you zoom in to the spaces to the far west, north, right there, there's two new trees. I'm just wondering if those two new trees are going to be too much in the shadow of the two large trees that are there to remain.
Potentially.
And if it would be better just to move those trees on the north side of the two red circled trees. Just more of a long-term planting plan, kind of.
We thought about that, where our concern is there are, and this goes back to our earlier conversation with, having to plant 40 new trees every time any work happens in this property, is if we start pushing trees into that little bit of open space that's there, we're not going to have open space anymore. It's all going to be shaded. It's not going to be a nice sunny open space. So we are trying to find the balance of maintaining the open space, but also planting new trees. We could plant smaller, more ornamental trees if that would be acceptable.
I'm not saying it's a no, it's just more of something I noticed as far as,
we talked about it.
We want to plant a tree that lives as long as possible, so is that the best spot for it?
Right. Yeah, we could definitely do a smaller tree and, get them a little closer together to get them out more from the canopy of those two bigger trees.
At least you guys are thinking about it, so that's good. All right, I'm going to keep going here. We got more tree stuff. So a lot of material to read through, and I read
Yep.
through as much as I could. It sounds like there'll be an arborist on site for the duration of the project,
As needed.
as needed.
As needed,
Okay.
yep. So as they're doing demolition work and they're pulling out trees, as they are working in that, those areas, like up at the boardwalk area, that's not really an issue. We're not going near anything up
Yeah.
there. So they wouldn't be needed on the days they're working up there.
Gotcha.
But as needed, yes.
Okay. And
Yep.
is that just a contracted arborist you're using Davey? Or is that an
No,
in-house
it'll be written
city?
into the bid that the contractor would have to hire a third party.
Okay, gotcha.
As part of this, and then that third party would report. It could be Davey.
Okay.
It would be great if it was Davey, because they know the site really well right now.
Yep. And is it called out to be a certified arborist, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you've got the standards within the NFP, they're gonna have to meet that.
Wonderful.
So, and, I'll be honest, not a lot of the arborists in our community want to do this work, so it very much may end up being Davey.
To continue on with for the certified arborist, I did also notice that I was reading a spec there for tree protection and for installing wrap on the tree, that it was to be done by an IRS certified arborist, which is great. I did not see the same arborist requirement call out for installation of the new trees, which I would argue is almost more important that those trees get installed properly, because I see far too often large projects, landscapers, lots of times, most often trees are not installed correctly, and that shortens their life dramatically.
Right, yep, I agree.
So I'm just wondering, is it in there and I missed it, or if
No, it's not in there yet.
Can we add it?
That's part of, yes, we can add that to the tree management plan. It would also be part of the bid documents, which we haven't completed yet, so all the specifications, all the front end work, all of that information that goes along with the bid, none of that has been produced yet, just because we wanted to get through all of this before we started doing that.
Okay.
So it would be included as part of that. I don't know that a lot of our landscaping crews in Kalamazoo area have arborists on staff, so that may be a challenge. It may be that we just have to have whoever is the arborist on site for construction is keeping an eye on them when they're doing the installation.
Yeah.
Just because there aren't a lot, unfortunately, in our community that have that.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of on the same topic, and maybe just more for general knowledge, I saw on the plant list on L1.1, it's page 102, the route indicated for most of these trees are B&B, ball and burlap, right? Is that
Yep.
one? And I've heard that the success rate of planting a ball and burlap tree is fairly low because the taproot is usually cut. I'd like to, if you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
he can probably speak more to that, but ball and burlap is way preferred compared to a container rootstock, because it'll get root bound very quickly. Bare root is, again, not preferred because the roots will tend to people don't manage them well, and they tend to get dried out, which damages the tree. So ball and burlap is a great way of doing it. What you want to make sure is that the burlap is removed, from the top portion of that ball. The cage is removed from the top portion. You want to make sure that that ball, that soil, is not cracked, is not broken. It needs to be, that solid ball of dirt. You don't want any damage to the plant. It's a certain height you need to bury it at. The mulch needs to be put in correctly. You don't want a mulch volcano. You want a mulch donut. And it needs to be watered. Water is critical. A lot of times people are planting trees and they walk away. And in Michigan, sure, in the spring and fall, we can get some rain. This year's been a great example. But you hit June, July, and August, and suddenly that rain disappears, and they need to be watered consistently through the year to become established, and most people walk away. So one of the things we have as part of that is that we require either the tree bags or the tree diapers to be installed as part of it, and then the contractor is required for that year of establishment that they have to come out and make sure those bags are filled, that the diapers are filled, and that kind of keeps putting that water into that tree and helps that tree get established. So ball and burlap really is the way to go. And I don't know if you disagree with that, but.
Honestly, there's pros and cons to both.
Okay.
Containerized trees have really poor root structures because of the container limitations, so you got a lot of girdling roots. Ball and burlap, it retains a lot of the root ball. However, by digging process of making the balled and burlap, it cuts off a lot of the fine nutrient absorbing roots which are required for the tree to survive. So it's each one has its pros and cons, and each one should be handled differently on installation. So,
But including that certified arborist for the install process would set the tree up for the
I think that would be the best
highest
course of action.
percentage of
Yeah.
success. True.
Yep.
I mean, we're already going to have an arborist on site, so,
Perfect.
you know.
My last is, as far as the arborist search, there is a website, so you can search locally for arborist. It's called Trees Are Good. So you're familiar with it. So you can
Yes.
search through that and find any local arborist within whatever
They choose,
mile.
this has been an ongoing issue for a few years now, trying to deal with the NFP and park projects, which tend to be larger pieces of property, and finding an arborist in town. Bless their hearts, we have lovely arborists in town. None of them want to take on this project. I have spoken to everybody in a very large radius. I have, promise. They don't.
Okay.
You and I can talk afterwards.
Okay.
I can list you who I've talked to.
Sure.
I've gone as far as Detroit, Lansing,
Okay.
Grand Rapids. They don't want to do it.
Okay.
So Davie Resource Group is the closest that we can use. There's also a gentleman in the South Bend area that we've used a couple times, but he's nearing retirement, so he doesn't want to do the bigger projects. So he did like Verberg Park for us, but Milham was too big.
Okay.
So that's been an ongoing challenge.
Well, you're familiar with the website, so that's
Yep,
what I was
yep.
trying to plug in. So
Yep, I appreciate that.
wonderful. All right. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Any other
Yeah.
questions?
So one of the good benefits is that we'll have that woodland management plan on hand, you know, in our files, so we'll have it to always reference back to. And it's one of the big things as we spoke, you know, as Rachel and team were like thinking about the project. That was a key component that we mentioned. Like you should probably have that.
Right.
It's going to give you peace of mind, and then also it really helps with the management during construction, which always gets tricky with projects this size, but we've had other projects come before the board with solid woodland management plans and have had good outcomes.
And that'll be part of the bid documents as well, so it'll have to be there, so the contractor will have it to bid, apply the pricing, and then be able to follow it during construction, so.
Great.
I'm ready to make a motion if we're at that point.
We're ready. One more comment.
Go for it.
Since there's so many oaks in this park, we just need to be cognizant of the work and damaging any oak trees that are to retain because of oak wilt
Yep.
during the growing season.
Yep.
So,
Yep, absolutely. There's several trees in here that we definitely want to protect and keep, and that's part of that tree management plan, is keeping that work limit really tight to the work and not spreading out, so that we don't have vehicles running through
Yep.
these areas and potentially damaging other trees.
great.
Yep.
I'm done.
I make a motion that the Natural Features Protection Board approve the Milham Park Improvement Project at 607 East Kilgore Road with the following conditions. No work begins until full site plan review approval. Tree protection fencing remains in place during work. Conservation measures and construction BMPs identified and detailed on page 5 of the USFWS verification letter, Appendix B, are implemented to avoid impacts to protected species. Approval of the city stormwater engineer.
Support.
All right, Nolan, roll call, please.
Yeah, Hollander,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Stemple,
Yes.
Munchow,
Yes.
Bassett.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. On to, let's see, there's no unfinished business to report. There's no staff reports or updates. Communications and announcements. Are there any communications or announcements from the staff or the board members?
None from staff. This is as heavy of a caseload as you can get. I usually max us out at 4, so this is a full agenda. So I hope, there's nothing, I think, on the horizon for next month. So I'm hoping we can jump back into doing some of the work session stuff next month, unless, of course, I know it's busy for everybody at the height of summer, so if we need to, we can always, if there's no agenda items or action, we can cancel, and that's fine, but I'll do my best to try and get a staff person here too, to present on a topic. this was very heavy admin caseload, so it was a lot of preparation. So that's, I guess, my brief update. But
All right, anyone else? Thank you, Nolan. All right, meeting adjourned.
you did it.
Got to hit the hammer.